Dakota Bottom, and today I will be presenting to you on how to watercolor. So, I haven't been watercoloring for that long. I actually just started watercoloring in my advanced art class this past August in 2021. But she did teach me a lot on how to start watercoloring, so that is what I'm going to be presenting about today for you. So, for the first thing that you should know about watercoloring is learning the basics of the watercolor technique. So, referencing an article by author Shelley that was made in August 2018, she said that most high quality watercolor sets are going to have richer pigment, so you're going to need more water to dilute it, and so therefore, since you're going to use more water to dilute it, it's going to appear lighter on the canvas once it's dried. So therefore, what you want to do after that is make a color chart of all the colors in your set. So making a color chart gives you a good idea of what each color will look like when wet and when dried. But obviously you'll need to know more of what it looks like dried, so once it's the final product. And you'll also need to know how much water you'll need to dilute each color. So with that being said, the second thing you need to know when learning how to watercolor is practice. The first thing you can do when practicing is mixing your colors. So with that being said, you can mix your colors to make different colors, see how they turn out, and after that you can also take the colors to blend them, see how well they'll blend together, what color they'll blend together to, and then also how they fade. Another thing that you can practice are these three techniques. The first one is a wet on wet technique. So basically that's saying how you will take a wet brush with water, no color, and put it on the canvas or watercolor paper, and then you'll take the brush with the color and put the watercolor on the water. The second technique is a wet on dry technique. This is when you have a dry canvas or dry watercolor paper and you take the watercolor brush and add the color just right onto the dry canvas. And the last one is layering and blending. So since we made a color chart already, that is going to help you when you start to blend your watercolors together because you know what looks good with what. Layering, on the other hand, it is not as hard as you would think, but sometimes if you don't see if it's fully dried, the colors will mesh together and make a color that you probably did not intend on having on your artwork in the first place. With this being said, you can use a wet paper towel, and sometimes, yes, it will soak up the color, but other times it doesn't. Another thing that I learned that you can do to soak up the water and not the color is take a dry paintbrush and put it on there and it will absorb the water. So with that being said, this brings me to our third way of learning how to watercolor, which is your ideas. Referencing an article by author Monica, which was posted and made in July 2018, she said that many times when she was stuck on ideas, she would sit down and think about the things that she loved. And with this being said, this never really worked for me, so I made minute lists. And with those minute lists, I would just sit down, put a minute on the clock, and then write a list on animals, scary things, or things around the house, which then in the end I would circle my favorite ideas and put them into one artwork. So in conclusion, watercoloring isn't as hard as you think. There's just some techniques that you do need to learn before actually doing this. And some mistakes will be made in the process, which I did do in this watercolor. But that's okay, because in the end, I did make it look not as noticeable and more natural which I also liked how it turned out in the end. And so with that being said, Bob Ross once said, "There are no mistakes, just happy accidents."